August 15th, 1943, 6:18 a.m., Kiska Island, Aleutian Islands. Temperature, 42 degrees Fahrenheit. Visibility, less than 50 feet. Private First Class Robert Hartman crouches behind a volcanic rock. M1 Garand rifle ready. 23 years old, from Wisconsin. He's part of the largest Allied landing force in the Pacific to date. 34,426 American and Canadian troops hitting one small island. Intelligence reports 10,000 Japanese defenders dug into bunkers and caves. Hartman hears gunfire ahead, automatic weapons, then screams in English. His squad leader gives the order. Enemy contact 100 yards front. Fire! Hartman pulls the trigger. His 8-round clip empties in 6 seconds. Around him, hundreds of rifles open up. Artillery shells explode in the fog. The battle has begun, but there's a problem. There are no Japanese soldiers on Kiska Island. There haven't been for 18 days. The enemy evacuated 51,803 men without the Allies knowing. For the next 3 days, 34,000 American and Canadian soldiers will fight each other in the fog, resulting in over 300 casualties, friendly fire, accidents, booby traps. How did the largest intelligence failure of the Pacific War happen? And why did the US military try to bury this story for decades? June 1942. While the world watches the Battle of Midway, Japanese forces execute a separate operation 1,200 miles to the north. They invade Attu and Kiska, 2 islands in the Aleutian chain, American territory. For the first time since 1812, foreign forces occupy U.S. soil. The strategic logic seems clear. Establish forward bases, threaten Alaska, divert American resources from the Central Pacific. But there's a deeper purpose. The Aleutian invasion is a diversion for the Midway operation. By the time American commanders realize this, Japan controls 2 American islands. The American public reacts with shock. Enemy forces on U.S. territory? Unacceptable. President Roosevelt faces political pressure. Admiral Chester Nimitz faces a strategic dilemma. These islands are nearly worthless militarily, frozen rocks in the middle of nowhere, covered in fog 250 days per year. But they're American rocks. June 6th, 1942. Rear Admiral Takeji Ono lands on Kiska with 1,250 men. Over the following year, this garrison grows to 5,183 troops. They build a submarine base with repair facilities, 2 airfields, 1 completed, 1 under construction, anti-aircraft batteries, 12 Type 88 75mm guns, coastal defense, 9 Type 41 75mm mountain guns, underground bunkers connected by tunnels, supply depots carved into volcanic rock. The conditions are brutal. Temperature ranges from 20 degrees Fahrenheit to 50 degrees Fahrenheit year-round. Wind averages 30 miles an hour, with gusts exceeding 100. Rain or snow 200+ days per year. Fog so thick you can't see 20 feet. The Japanese soldiers call it the place where the devil lives. American submarines and aircraft attack constantly. Supply ships rarely get through. By spring 1943, the Kiska garrison is slowly starving, cut off, and strategically irrelevant. But they're also veterans, hardened by 14 months of survival in conditions that would break most units. The United States isn't interested in negotiation. After Attu falls in May 1943 with nearly complete Japanese casualties, only 28 prisoners from 2,600 defenders, the Americans know Kiska will be worse. Intelligence estimates 10,000 defenders. Actual number? 5,183. But American planners assume the garrison has been reinforced. The solution? Overwhelming force. Operation Cottage. The invasion plan calls for 11th Air Force, 168 aircraft, U.S. Navy, 3 battleships, 1 escort carrier, 19 cruisers, 50 destroyers, 16 transports, 31 auxiliaries. This is a larger invasion force than many Pacific Island assaults. Tarawa, 6 months later, will use 35,000 troops. Kiska will use almost the same number for an island one-third the size. Here's what American intelligence knows in August 1943. Japanese radio traffic from Kiska continues. Actually, pre-recorded broadcasts on timer. Aerial reconnaissance shows intact buildings and anti-aircraft fire. Actually, automated weapons rigged to fire randomly. Submarine periscope sightings report activity on the island. Mist, shadows, and wishful thinking. No evidence of evacuation. Here's what they don't know. July 28, 1943, 7 p.m. Under cover of dense fog, Japanese cruisers Abukuma and Kiso plus 10 destroyers arrive at Kiska. July 28, 7:55 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. 5,183 Japanese troops evacuate in 3.5 hours. Operation complete, 0 casualties, perfect deception. The American Navy patrols 50 miles from Kiska that night. They see nothing. Radar shows nothing. The Japanese fleet enters, loads every soldier, and vanishes. One of the most successful evacuations in military history, and the Americans have no idea. For 18 days, the U.S. military prepares to invade an empty island. 0400 hours, naval bombardment begins. Battleship USS Mississippi opens fire. 16-inch guns launch 1,900-pound shells toward Kiska's shore installations. Each shell creates a blast crater 40 feet wide and 15 feet deep. For 2 hours, 3 battleships and 8 cruisers hammer the island. Total ordnance expended, 330 tons of high explosives. Target, Japanese fortifications. Actual result, destroyed already abandoned buildings, cratered empty beaches, detonated some pre-placed mines. The bombardment stops at 0600, silence. Then the landing craft lower from the transports. 0618 hours, first wave hits the beach. The 7th Infantry Division's 184th Infantry Regiment approaches Kiska Harbor. Private Hartman is in the 3rd wave. His landing craft holds 36 men. The water is rough, 4-foot swells. Half the men are seasick, vomiting into their helmets. The coxswain brings the Higgins boat toward shore. Hartman checks his rifle again, 8th time since loading. The M1 Barrand holds 8 rounds in an N-block clip. He has 10 additional clips in his ammunition belt. Total, 88 rounds, plus 4 Mark II fragmentation grenades. The landing craft grinds onto volcanic gravel. The ramp drops. Go, go, go! Hartman jokes into 2 feet of ice-cold water. His boots sink into the gravel. He runs forward, M1 at the ready, scanning for enemies. Nothing. No machine gun fire, no mortars, no rifle rounds snapping overhead, just wind and fog. He reaches the beach, takes cover behind a large rock. His squad assembles around him. All 12 men accounted for. No casualties. Strange. Staff Sergeant James Morrison, 28 from Oregon, gives hand signals. Advance inland, combat spread formation, 10 yards intervals. They move forward into the fog. 06:45 a.m. First contact. Somewhere in the fog, someone fires a shot, then another, then a burst from what sounds like a Japanese Type 96 light machine gun, 6.5 millimeters, 550 rounds per minute. Distinctive sound, but it's not Japanese. It's a Canadian Bren gun, caliber .303, 500 rounds per minute. Similar sound profile. The Canadian units landed on the opposite side of the island and are advancing through the same fog. American soldiers hear enemy fire. They return fire into the fog. The Canadians hear incoming rounds. They shoot back. The fog is so thick that visibility varies from 20 to 100 feet. No one can see who they're shooting at. Everyone assumes it's Japanese defenders. 07:20 a.m. Hartman's squad in contact. Hartman's squad moves cautiously through volcanic rocks and tundra grass. The terrain is uneven, rocks hidden by moss, sudden drop-offs, streams cutting through the landscape. Ahead, movement in the fog. Hartman sees a silhouette. Helmet shape, Japanese? American? He can't tell. The silhouette carries a rifle. Sergeant Morrison whispers, "Hold fire. Identify first." But another squad 50 yards to their left doesn't wait. They open fire. 8 M1 Garand simultaneously, sending 64 rounds into the fog in 8 seconds. The silhouette goes down, screaming in English, "Cease fire! Cease fire! Friendly forces!" But the message doesn't spread fast enough. Other units hear gunfire, assume enemy contact, and shoot toward the sound. For 15 minutes, American soldiers exchange fire with other American soldiers, each believing they're engaging Japanese defenders. Casualties: 4 men down, 2 not breathing, 2 with serious wounds to legs and chest. This pattern will repeat across the island for 3 days. 1,200 hours. The island is secured, but we don't know it's empty. By noon, Allied forces control most of Kiska. They've captured the Japanese submarine base, 2 airfields, multiple bunker complexes, and supply depots. They've found hot food in mess halls, cooked weeks ago, now rotting, personal items, letters, photos, uniforms, weapons caches, mostly booby-tracked, 1 dog, a Japanese Spitz named Explosion, later adopted by U.S. troops and sent stateside, and 0 Japanese soldiers. But nobody has confirmed the island is completely empty yet. The assumption remains the enemy is here somewhere, hiding in caves and bunkers, preparing for a counterattack. Hartman's unit receives orders. Advance to Hill 400, establish defensive perimeter, dig in for expected nighttime counterattack. Hill 400 is a volcanic rise approximately 2 miles inland. The route takes them through rough terrain with limited visibility. The fog has worsened, now only 30 feet visibility. Rain begins falling, cold and steady. The platoon, 40 men split into 4 squads, moves into staggered column. Hartman is 3rd position in the 2nd squad. He's been awake for 16 hours. His uniform is soaked. His fingers are numb, but adrenaline keeps him alert. Every shadow looks like an enemy soldier. Every rock could hide a sniper. Every depression in the ground could be a spider hole. Private George Chen, 20, from California, steps on a Type 93 mine. It's not a direct pressure mine. It's rigged with a tripwire 5 feet away that Chen didn't see in the fog. The explosion is instantaneous. The mine contains 1.5 pounds of explosive. Chen goes down. His left leg is shattered below the knee. Shrapnel hits 2 other soldiers. Minor wounds, but bleeding. Medic Corporal David Reyes, 24, from Texas, runs forward with his medical kit. He applies a tourniquet above Chen's knee, injects morphine, and begins bandaging. Chen is conscious, screaming, going into shock. The platoon stops. They're pinned down in a minefield. Any direction could have more mines. They mark the area with colored tape and call for engineers. It takes 2 hours to clear a safe path. Chen is evacuated by a stretcher, 6 men carrying him back to the beach, where a duck, amphibious truck, transports him to a hospital ship. Chen survives. He loses the leg, but returns home, one of 71 American soldiers who step on mines during Operation Cottage. Hartman's platoon reaches Hill 400. They begin digging foxholes. The ground is volcanic rock, covered by thin topsoil and moss. Digging is slow, exhausting work. Each foxhole takes 40 minutes to excavate to a depth of 3 feet. As darkness approaches, sunset at 2100 hours this far north in August, every soldier is on edge. Intelligence briefings said the Japanese prefer nighttime attacks. They expect bonsai charges, infiltration attempts, grenade attacks. Hartman sits in his foxhole with Private Leonard Baker, 19, from Mississippi. 2-man positions. One watches while the other rests. They have 2 M1 Garand rifles, 88 rounds each, 4 grenades, 2 K rations, canned meals, 1 entrenching tool, small shovel, 1 blanket, inadequate for the cold, no sleeping bags, not issued for this operation. Temperature drops to 38 degrees Fahrenheit. The rain continues. They huddle together for warmth, taking turns on watch in 2-hour shifts. The island comes alive with sounds in the darkness. Wind whistling through rocks, rain pattering on metal helmets, volcanic vents releasing steam with hissing sounds, seabirds crying, albatross, puffins, auklets, and gunfire. Somewhere in the darkness, a soldier fires at a shadow. Other soldiers hear it and assume enemy attack. They fire toward the sound. Within minutes, multiple positions across the island are shooting at nothing, at each other, at ghosts. The Canadian 13th Infantry Brigade, positioned on the northwest sector, reports heavy enemy contact. They call for artillery support. American 105mm howitzers fire illumination rounds and high-explosive shells toward the Canadian reported coordinates. Fortunately, the coordinates are off by 300 yards. The shells land in empty tundra, but the artillery fire triggers more infantry fire from units who think they're being attacked. This cycle continues intermittently throughout the night. Sporadic gunfire, followed by silence, followed by more gunfire. No one sleeps well. Casualties Day 1. 17 soldiers down, 4 from friendly fire, 7 from mines, 3 from accidents, 3 from disease or hypothermia, 31 wounded, 0 confirmed enemy combatants engaged. Officers begin comparing notes. Something is wrong. Multiple patrols have advanced deep into Japanese-held territory without contact. Bunkers are empty. Defensive positions are abandoned but intact. No bodies, no prisoners, no resistance. Lieutenant Colonel Wayne Zimmerman, battalion commander for the 2nd Battalion 184th Infantry, reviews the evidence. His battalion has cleared 4 square miles of terrain. They have encountered 0 living Japanese soldiers. They found extensive fortifications, all abandoned. Estimated time of abandonment, at least 2 weeks. Based on food decomposition. Zimmerman sends a report up the chain of command. Possible enemy withdrawal. Recommend reconnaissance in force before committing to full assault. But the message doesn't reach Admiral Thomas Kincaid, overall operation commander, until 1400 hours. Communications are hampered by the fog, which interferes with radio signals. Field telephones are being laid, but the volcanic rock makes burying cables difficult. Meanwhile, 34,000 troops continue operating under the assumption that enemy forces are present. Sergeant Morrison receives orders. Patrol south toward the submarine pens, search for enemy positions, report any contact. The squad moves out. 12 men in a staggered file formation. Visibility is better today, approximately 100 feet, but still limited. The rain has stopped, replaced by a thick mist that soaks everything. They're moving through an area with Japanese defensive trenches. The trenches are well built, 6 feet deep, 3 feet wide, with overhead cover in sections, firing steps carved into the walls, ammunition caches and sealed drums, but no soldiers. Hartman jumps down into a trench to investigate. He finds a Type 38 rifle, 6.5mm bolt action, leaning against the trench wall, loaded, a helmet, Type 90, hanging on a wooden peg, a half-eaten meal in a metal bowl, rice and fish, weeks old, covered in mold, a letter written in Japanese characters. Hartman can't read it. He takes the letter as a souvenir. Years later, a translator will tell him it's from a soldier named Tanaka to his wife, describing the harsh conditions and expressing hope he'll survive to return home. Tanaka made it. He evacuated on July 28. Hartman's squad exits the trench system and advances through open tundra. Ahead, movement. Multiple figures, approximately 80 yards distant, moving perpendicular to their position. Sergeant Morrison raises his hand. Halt. He observes through binoculars, but the fog makes details impossible to see. The figures are wearing what? Uniforms, definitely. Color? Dark. Shape? Indistinct. Could be Japanese, could be Canadian, could be American units from another battalion. Morrison tries the radio. Alpha 2-6, this is Alpha 2-3. We have visual contact. Unknown forces, grid coordinate Tango 794. Request identification. Over. Static. He tries again. No response. The radio's battery is weak, and the fog is scattering the signal. The figures disappear into the mist. Morrison makes a decision. Follow at a distance. Attempt identification before engagement. The squad advances carefully. They move through a rocky area with good cover. Every man is tense. Finger near the trigger guard, but not on the trigger. Training discipline holds. A voice ahead, speaking English or Japanese? Hartman can't tell. The wind distorts the sound. Then clearly, "Over here! I found something!" English. American accent. Hartman relaxes slightly. Morrison calls out, "American forces! Don't shoot! We're coming up!" Pause. Then, "Identify yourself. 184th Infantry, 7th Division. Sergeant Morrison, 2nd Squad, Alpha Company. Come forward slowly. Hands visible." The squads meet. It's a patrol from the 53rd Infantry Regiment, part of the Alaskan Defense Command. They've been on Kiska since 0800, tasked with clearing the southwestern sector. Both sergeants compare notes. Neither has encountered enemy troops. Both have found abandoned positions. Both have lost men to mines and accidents. Neither has fired at an actual enemy combatant. The pattern is becoming undeniable. The island is empty. Admiral Kincaid receives multiple reports confirming the same conclusion. The Japanese have evacuated. When is unclear, but the island is currently undefended. He orders 1. Cease all offensive operations. 2. Establish patrol routes to avoid friendly fire incidents. 3. Focus on mine clearance and fortification demolition. 4. Begin withdrawal planning. But the damage is already done. For 2 days, Allied forces have been fighting shadows, mines, and each other. As units begin consolidating positions, a tragedy unfolds at Gertrude Cove, one of the landing beaches. A weasel, an M29 Weasel, tracked cargo carrier, is transporting supplies from the beach to an inland depot. The vehicle weighs 4,100 pounds, loaded. The driver, Private First Class Alan Tucker, 21, from Ohio, is navigating in twilight with minimal visibility. The Weasel approaches a steep embankment. Tucker doesn't see it in time. The fog obscures the drop-off. He tries to brake, but the volcanic gravel provides little traction. The Weasel tips forward and rolls down a 30-foot slope. Tucker is thrown from the vehicle. The Weasel lands on top of him. When recovery crews arrive 15 minutes later, Tucker is unresponsive. Medics attempt revival, but he's already gone. Cause: massive internal trauma from the vehicle's weight. Tucker becomes casualty number 43 on an island where no enemy soldiers exist. Even though the island is confirmed empty, patrols continue. The mission shifts from combat to engineering. Locate and map all Japanese mines, booby traps, and fortifications for demolition. Hartman's squad is assigned a sector of Japanese bunkers along the northern coast. These are impressive structures. Reinforced concrete walls, 2 feet thick, underground tunnels connecting multiple positions. They're designed to withstand naval bombardment. The bunkers are abandoned, but dangerous. Japanese engineers have booby-trapped doors, supply caches, and even some furniture. A favorite trap: grenades rigged to a wire connected to a door handle. Open the door, the pin pulls, and the grenade detonates with a 5-second delay. Combat engineers accompany the infantry patrols. Sergeant William Hayes, 32, from Kansas, is a demolition specialist. He's been defusing explosives for 2 years. He knows Japanese tactics, recognizes their trap signatures. They approach Bunker Complex 17, a series of 5 interconnected positions. Hayes examines the main entrance. The door is ajar. Suspicious. In professional military installations, doors are closed unless someone recently exited. He takes out a mirror on an extendable rod, standard engineer equipment, and uses it to look inside without exposing himself. The mirror shows a wire running from the door hinge to something in the shadows. Hayes can't see the payload, but he knows it's there. Trapped. Give me 10 minutes. Hayes works carefully. He uses wire cutters to snip the tripwire, rendering it inert. Then he props the door fully open and inspects the interior. The payload was a Type 97 grenade duct-taped to a wooden beam. The tripwire would have pulled the pin when the door opened further. Hayes renders it safe, then enters the bunker. Inside, he finds 6 Type 97 grenades rigged to various triggers. 1 Type 93 mine placed under a collapsed section of ceiling, pressure activated. A stockpile of ammunition, 2,000 rounds of 6.5 millimeters, 500 rounds of 7.7 millimeters, 12 mortar shells. Haze marks the location for demolition crews. This bunker will be destroyed with satchel charges tomorrow. The process repeats across the island. Engineers identify, disarm, and mark hundreds of traps and mines. It's slow, dangerous work. One mistake means casualties. On the southwestern side of the island, Canadian forces are conducting similar operations. Private James McLeod, 20, from Ontario, is part of a patrol clearing Japanese defensive positions. McLeod spots what appears to be valuable intelligence, a Japanese map case left on a table in an abandoned command post. The case is leather, embossed with Japanese characters, and appears to contain documents. McLeod reaches for it. His sergeant, a veteran with 3 years of combat experience, yells, "Don't touch that!" But McLeod has already grabbed the handle. There's a soft click. A wire has been pulled. A grenade's pin releases. The sergeant tackles McLeod, throwing both of them sideways. The grenade detonates. Shrapnel sprays the room. McLeod takes fragments in his right arm and shoulder, painful but not life-threatening. The sergeant absorbs multiple hits to his back and legs. 2 other soldiers in the room are wounded by ricocheting fragments. All 4 survive, but the sergeant will spend 6 months in recovery. His quick reaction saved McLeod's life. Later, he receives a commendation for bravery, one of the few positive stories from Operation Cottage. Hartman sits on a volcanic rock, eating a K ration. The meal consists of 1 can of hash, beef and potato, 4 crackers, 1 chocolate bar, Hershey's, military formula designed not to melt, 1 pack of cigarettes, Lucky Strike, 4 cigarettes, 1 piece of chewing gum. He doesn't smoke, so he gives the cigarettes to Baker, who does. Around him, soldiers are resting, cleaning weapons, writing letters home. The mood is strange, a mixture of relief, no combat, frustration, wasted effort, and anger. Casualties for nothing. Hartman thinks about Private Chen, who lost his leg to a mine, about Tucker, crushed by his own vehicle, about the 4 men from the first day hit by friendly fire. He writes in his journal, Hartman kept a diary throughout the war, later published in 1987. August 17th, 1943. Day 3 on Kiska. No Japs. We shot at each other instead. Lost good men to mines and accidents. Whole thing feels wrong, like we're fighting the island itself. Want to go home. This sentiment is widespread. Operation Cottage will become a source of shame for many participants. It's not a battle they'll talk about proudly. It's the time they invaded an empty island and lost over 300 men to their own mistakes. Despite confirmation that the island is empty, defensive protocols continue. Soldiers still dig foxholes, post sentries, and maintain 50% alert, half the unit awake at all times. Hartman takes the midnight watch. He sits in his foxhole, M1 Garand across his lap, staring into darkness. The fog has cleared somewhat. Visibility about 200 feet under a partial moon. The island is eerily quiet. No gunfire tonight, just wind, waves, and the occasional bird cry. He wonders, where are the Japanese soldiers? Did they know we were coming? How did they escape without us noticing? The questions have no answers yet. Historians will piece together the evacuation details years later. At 0000 hours, Baker relieves him. Hartman tries to sleep, but can't. The ground is cold, wet, uncomfortable. His mind keeps replaying the landing, the gunfire, the casualties. Finally, around 0400 hours, exhaustion wins, and he drifts into uneasy sleep.
The operation shifts to organized withdrawal. Units begin loading back onto transports. Priority goes to wounded first, then support troops, then combat infantry. Hartman's unit is scheduled to leave on August 20th. Until then, they assist engineers with demolition work. Their task: help destroy Japanese fortifications to prevent future use. The submarine pens are packed with explosives, 500 pounds of TNT placed in strategic locations. At 1400 hours, engineers detonate the charges. The explosion is massive, shaking the ground, sending smoke and debris 200 feet into the air. When the dust clears, the pens are rubble. Mission accomplished. Similar demolitions occur across the island. Airfields are cratered, bunkers collapsed, supply depots burned. The goal: leave nothing useful for any future occupation force. At 900 hours, Hartman's company marches to the beach for extraction. They board landing craft, which transport them to USS Harris, a troop transport ship. As Hartman looks back at Kiska Island, he sees smoke rising from demolition fires, shell craters covering the beaches, and a landscape that looks like a moonscape. The island cost the Allies over 300 casualties without a single enemy soldier present. The Harris departs at 1600 hours. Destination: Adak Island, American base, 200 miles east. Then Seattle. Hartman will never return to Kiska. The island will remain American territory, but will never be permanently inhabited again. Today, it's part of the Alaska Maritime National Wildlife Refuge, a windswept rock where seabirds nest and old rusting military equipment slowly decays. The official U.S. military press release, dated August 24, 1943, reads, "American and Canadian forces successfully liberated Kiska Island from Japanese occupation. The enemy, recognizing the futility of defense against superior Allied forces, evacuated prior to our arrival. Our troops secured the island with minimal casualties. This operation demonstrates American dominance in the Aleutian theater." This statement is technically accurate, but deliberately misleading. Minimal casualties obscures the reality: over 300 men lost to friendly fire, accidents, and mines. No mention of the intelligence failure that allowed 5,183 Japanese troops to evacuate undetected. The story is buried. Reporters are not given access to survivors. Interviews are restricted. Official casualty reports are delayed, then released with minimal detail. Why? Because Operation Cottage is an embarrassment. When researchers finally compile complete records in the 1990s, after declassification, the full scope becomes clear. Total Allied casualties, 313. Breakdown: friendly fire incidents, 2847. Mine and booby trap casualties, 71 total. Accidents: vehicle crashes, falls, equipment failures, 1931. Disease and exposure: hypothermia, trench foot, respiratory illness, 113. By nationality: American, 24, not returning, 116 wounded or ill. Canadian, 4, not returning, 4 wounded. July 28, 1943. The Japanese Navy executes Operation K-Go, Kiska Evacuation. The plan: wait for thick fog, which occurs frequently but needs to coincide with ship availability. Use cruisers and destroyers, faster than transports, better armed if intercepted. Sail from Paramushiro, Japan's northern base, to Kiska, 650 nautical miles. Load all 5,183 troops in under 4 hours. Return to Japan before American forces notice.
1945 hours. Japanese task force enters Kiska Harbor. Visibility less than 100 feet. American patrol vessels are 50 miles away, unable to see or hear the operation. 1955 hours to 2130 hours. All personnel load onto 12 ships. Officers ensure nothing valuable is left behind. They set booby traps and leave timers to fire anti-aircraft guns randomly, creating the illusion of continued occupation. 1945 hours. Last ship departs. Total time on station, 2 hours. 0 casualties.
American Navy radar does detect anomalies that night, but operators dismiss them as weather interference or equipment malfunction. The possibility of a full evacuation doesn't occur to anyone. It's a brilliant deception operation. The Japanese used the same tactics that make Kiska unenjoyable for occupiers: fog, weather, isolation, to enable their escape. Military historians debate Operation Cottage's significance. Negative perspective: major intelligence failure, waste of resources, 34,000 troops, 100+ ships, weeks of planning, casualties from incompetence, not combat, damage to morale when the truth eventually emerges. Positive perspective: operational experience for units that would later fight in the Philippines and Japan, mine clearance training in realistic conditions, improved communication protocols. The friendly fire incidents led to radio procedure reforms. Cold weather equipment testing. Most historians lean toward the negative interpretation. Kiska was a fiasco that was fortunately not opposed. Private Robert Hartman completed service in 1945 as Staff Sergeant, fought in the Philippines Campaign 1944 to 1945, earned Bronze Star, returned to Wisconsin, worked as a school teacher for 35 years, published memoir The Island That Wasn't There in 1987, passed away in 2003, age 83. His journal is now in the U.S. Army Heritage and Education Center archives. Sergeant James Morrison, promoted to lieutenant after Kiska, served in Europe 1944 to 1945, participated in D-Day landing, received Purple Heart after being wounded at the Battle of the Bulge. Post-war, career military, retired as colonel in 1968, passed away in 1992, age 77. Private George Chen, mine casualty, evacuated to San Francisco for treatment, leg amputated below knee, received Purple Heart and medical discharge, became an advocate for disabled veterans, worked for Veterans Administration for 30 years, passed away in 2001, age 78. Rear Admiral Takeji Ono, Japanese commander, successfully evacuated entire garrison, received commendation from the Imperial Navy, survived the war, and worked in the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force post-war, passed away in 1982, age 88. Never expressed regret about leaving booby traps that harmed Allied forces.
The island remains uninhabited. It's part of the Alaska Maritime National Wildlife Refuge. Access is restricted. No permanent facilities, no regular transport. What remains: rusting Quonset huts, metal prefab buildings, shell craters, still visible 80 years later, bunker ruins, crashed aircraft parts, unexploded ordnance. Warning signs advise against exploration. Thousands of seabirds, albatross, puffins, auklets. Occasionally, military historians, researchers, or documentary crews visit with special permission. They find artifacts, rusted rifles, helmets, ammunition casings, personal items. The volcanic environment preserves metal reasonably well. In 2013, a joint U.S.-Canadian memorial was erected on Kiska, transported by helicopter, placed near former landing beaches. The plaque reads, "In memory of Allied forces who served in Operation Cottage, August 1943, they faced the enemy with courage. They endured the island with resilience. They did not return from a battle with ghosts and fog, lest we forget." It's a somber acknowledgement of a forgotten operation on a forgotten island. Operation Cottage is taught at military academies as a case study in 1. Intelligence verification. Never rely on single-source intelligence. The Americans assumed Japanese presence based on radio signals and aerial reconnaissance. Both were deceptive. Modern doctrine requires multi-source confirmation. 2. Communication protocols. Friendly fire incidents decreased dramatically after Kiska. The military improved radio procedures for unit identification, visual recognition training, rules of engagement in limited visibility, and better coordination between Allied forces. 3. Force matching. Don't use overwhelming force. against an estimated threat without confirming the estimate. 34,000 troops for 10,000 defenders seemed reasonable, but the 10,000 number was wrong. Better reconnaissance would have revealed the evacuation. 4. Operational security. The Japanese demonstrated that a well-planned deception can succeed even against technologically superior opponents. Their evacuation is studied alongside successful Allied deceptions, Operation Fortitude and Operation Mincemeat.
Operation Cottage remains one of the least-known major operations of World War II. Ask a random American about Pacific battles, and they'll mention Pearl Harbor, Midway, Iwo Jima, Okinawa. Almost no one knows about Kiska. Why? Because governments bury their mistakes. Kiska wasn't a heroic sacrifice or a brilliant victory. It was an intelligence failure that cost lives unnecessarily. The military had no incentive to publicize it. Veterans had no pride in discussing it. Even official histories downplay Cottage. The Army's official World War II historical series mentions Kiska in 3 pages out of 78,000 total pages. The Navy's official history gives it half a page. It wasn't until the 1980s, when veterans began publishing memoirs, that the full story emerged. Hartman's book sparked renewed interest. Researchers accessed declassified records, documentaries were filmed. Slowly, the forgotten battle became remembered. Numbers don't capture the reality. 313 casualties sounds abstract, but each number represents a soldier who enlisted to fight for their country, a family that received a telegram with devastating news, a life cut short by circumstances that shouldn't have occurred, survivors dealing with physical and psychological trauma, Private Tucker crushed by a vehicle on a foggy embankment, Private Chen losing his leg to a mine, 28 soldiers hit by rounds fired by their own side. These weren't combat casualties in the traditional sense. They weren't facing an enemy in a fair fight. They were victims of fog, poor intelligence, inadequate communication, and bad luck. Does that make their experience less valid, less worthy of remembrance? No. They served, they suffered, they deserve recognition.
Beyond military tactics, Kiska teaches broader lessons. 1. Confirmation bias. The Americans believed Japanese forces occupied Kiska, so they interpreted all evidence through that assumption. Random gunfire? Japanese defenders. Radio signals? Occupied positions. Aerial reconnaissance? Enemy activity. They saw what they expected to see, not what was actually there. 2. Sunk cost fallacy. After months of planning and resource commitment, canceling the operation would have been embarrassing, so they proceeded despite growing evidence that the island might be empty. Sometimes the right choice is to stop, reassess, and change course. 3. Communication failures. Friendly fire incidents occurred because units couldn't effectively identify each other in fog. Modern GPS and IFF, identification friend or foe, systems address this, but the core principle remains. When you can't see clearly, slow down and verify before acting. 4. Humility. The most powerful military in the world can still make mistakes. Technology doesn't eliminate human error. Planning doesn't guarantee success. Sometimes nature, fog, terrain, weather, is a more formidable opponent than any human enemy. The entire Aleutian campaign is often called the Forgotten War within World War II. While Europe and the Pacific Central Theater dominated headlines, soldiers fought and passed away on frozen rocks in the far north. They deserve better than obscurity. If this story moved you, I ask a favor, hit the like button. It signals to YouTube that stories like this, forgotten history, uncomfortable truths, lessons from mistakes, deserve to be recommended to other viewers. Too many worthy stories get buried by algorithms optimizing for entertainment value over historical value. Subscribe to this channel. We'll continue exploring lesser-known events from military history. Not propaganda, not hero worship, just facts, context, and respect for those who serve. And leave a comment. What other forgotten battles or operations should we cover? The archives are full of stories that deserve to be told. Thank you for watching. Remember Kiska. Remember the soldiers who fought an enemy that wasn't there on an island that time forgot.